Hi there, it's Adrian here, full-time teacher of the Alexander Technique. And today I thought we'd discuss something a bit different. Slightly philosophical, but I'm hoping it will prove practical as well. Now, it's not strictly speaking Alexander Technique canon, if you like. It's not something that Alexander personally talked about. But I have found, through talking to colleagues, that it seems to be a view that's quite commonly held anyway. So within the Alexander Technique, we definitely have the idea of psychophysical unity. That's the mind and body as a singular entity, which we shorthand call that the self with a capital S. But some of us like to take that idea a bit further. Like I say, it's not formal Alexander Technique, but I have yet to find a teacher who would argue against it. I've had quite a few positive responses about it, just discussing it online with fellow teachers. And that is the idea that we have self-environment unity. We are not separate from our environment, and our functioning is entirely in accordance with the environment. And by environment, I don't mean green issues. I'm talking about the space we have to move in, the fact that we have an accelerating surface coming up underneath us, to support us, and gravity doesn't actually drag us down. I shall link to my video on gravity, because that's something you need to understand, that as part of our environment, we're not being dragged down, we're actually being pushed up, and our structure is formed and evolved based on that. And we move, not because we have arms and legs, but because obviously there's something out there to interact with. I'd say it's not formal. I did, a while back, ask some colleagues online on the Facebook group, what would be a good word for this? How could we do? We've got self as psychophysical unity. What can we call self-environment unity? And there was some great discussion. In the end, I didn't get any great ideas that were succinct, but I realised actually there's a word we already have that's perfectly prosaic and perfectly useful, and that is being. So my idea of being encompasses that self-environment unity. Of course, as an idea, it's not a particularly new one. I'm sure many other philosophies probably have a similar view, particularly in the East. I think it would be a tradition that is not particularly novel, going back quite a few thousand years maybe, certainly hundreds. But yeah, being is self-environment unity, and it's important because it affects the way we think of movement. And obviously people come to the Alexander Technique to help them with their movement, often because the patterns of movement have left them to pain. A phrase I like to use, and I think I've used it before in video, is the idea we want to be like a fish in water. When you think of a fish in water, you think of a functional whole. The fish in the water, you take the fish out of the water and suddenly it's a not really very well functioning fish. But when we think of ourselves and fellow humanity, we kind of think of ourselves separated and not embedded within our environment. Like somehow we could just walk about and do stuff if there was no planet there, which is obviously ridiculous. If we were floating around in space, and we'd need a spacesuit for it, because obviously we need oxygen, so that's one thing already failed, we'd actually find we'd become quite ill quite quickly. We're completely evolved to be part of this environment, and not having an accelerating surface, gravity, to operate against, we end up with all sorts of problems, including pressure in the brain and the eyeballs that causes issues. We end up with brittle bones. So we need to be part of this environment. We need to learn how to embed ourselves in a way that our movement is based on finding ease within the environment. I mean, you think of a fish swimming, of course it's easy, it's fully adapted for it. Who would consider that you could use yourself badly if you're a fish in water, or a dolphin in water, or a whale in water? And yet somehow humanity has managed to take its environment and somehow ignore it and not be in accordance with it, and moving against it in ways that generate pain in the long run. So you don't move because you have arms and legs, etc. You move because you've got space to move in. And that's where your mental engagement needs to be, not in worrying about joints and muscles. It's, you've got something to interface with, and you can do it while supported from the ground underneath. So that's the thought. Mull it over. If you have any disagreements with that, leave a comment. We can get into a good discussion about it, but I really can't see how, personally, anyone could be in disagreement with that we are somehow separate from our environment, because our entire form, we exist as human beings because of the environment. If we were in a different environment with, say, different levels of gaseous quantities between oxygen, nitrogen, etc., we had different gravity, for example, different levels of heat and light, we would not be this form. We would be another being. We would not be humanity as we know it. So yeah, think that over and see if you can get a better idea of when you're moving with a reason, and the reason is to interact with your surroundings and be part of it and not separate from it. All right, a lot to think about there. If you want to get in touch, if you fancy trying some online Alexander Technique lessons, do get in touch, and I shall see you next time. All right, bye.